So just by way of introductions, I'm Christopher Evans. I work for Community Links Bromley, and we're going to be talking this afternoon in this session about the Innovation Fund. I will be initially presenting, and there are a number of other presenters on the call, and I'd like, if I may, to introduce those in no particular order. So first of all, Helena, do you want to introduce yourself, Helena, and talk about your role and what you do?
Thanks, Christopher. Hi, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Helena Jenkins. I am a commissioner within London Borough of Bromley, and so the innovation sits within the work I do. My role has been around reducing loneliness within the last 2 years, but we're moving on to how it's supporting the voluntary sector. So I will be one of the kind of moderators, evaluators from the Innovation Fund going forward. And any questions and queries you have, then you're more than welcome to send them to me.
Okay, thank you. We've also got on the call, Steve Smith. Steve, do you want to say hi?
Hi, I'm Steve Smith. I'm the Funding and Development Manager here at Community Links Bromley.
And the final person you're going to hear from today is Deborah Weeks from My Time Active, and she's going to talk about what success looks like. Deborah, do you want to just say brief hi to everyone on the call?
Thanks, Christopher. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm joined today by my colleague Anne Wilborn, who's our prime time manager and our partnerships manager here at My Time Active. And we're here to talk about a project that we have just completed that was innovation funded. So I'll be speaking to you towards the end of the presentation. Nice to see everybody on the call today.
Nice to see both of you, and thank you for stepping up and helping us with the presentation this afternoon. So just in terms of the session, as I said, there will be space for your questions to think about how you fit in with all this, but there are a number of things that I want to cover this afternoon. So the first thing is the introduction to the fund. Secondly, the application process and decision making. Thirdly, what support is available to you, as part of this application form, but B, subsequently. And we thought it would be really helpful just to give you a sample of a flavour of what success looks like, and we'll be looking at a range of applications that we received last time to give you a sense of what success actually looks like previously. So that's what we're going to cover in the next hour. So the first thing is the fund. It is about practical implementation of new ideas that drive change and result in positive outcomes and performance. And there are a number of areas that the fund aims to support. It is about prevention and it is about early intervention, but we're particularly focusing on a number of issues. So one is reducing social isolation and loneliness in adults. Secondly, it's about helping adults improve their physical and mental health and well-being more generally. Thirdly, it's about supporting unpaid carers of vulnerable adults, and Bromley's had a certain amount of publicity around that this week at the London Assembly. Promoting and supporting adult volunteering, providing day opportunities for vulnerable adults and old people, and then supporting young people with special education needs and disabilities. So they need to be 16 plus as they progress into adulthood. And what we do want to do is we want to learn about what works, to explore more effective ways of improving access and support to services, particularly for adults and communities impacted by health inequalities. And ultimately, it's about transforming learning and progression. And I should say this is funded through the Adult Better Care Fund, so the focus is very much on the well-being of adults. Funding available for this round, that's clearly very important. So Helena, would you remind us how much is currently available in this round?
Yeah, I think it's around 160,000. We're coming to the end of this financial year, so there's not a big, huge pot, but there is enough to have some really fantastic projects, which will lead on to the next year or the year after. And then hopefully in the new financial year, we'll go back to normal again.
So bear that in mind when you're thinking about your proposals and your ideas. We will give you a sense in terms of the average type of bids and what's been funded, but there will be further rounds. So if there's time pressures for you, there will be further rounds, and there's other ways we can support you and identify funding opportunities. So if you're not ready, I would defer it and think about deferring it. So the application process. So the first thing is what's not funded. So it's not a programme to fund capital works. And the other, I suppose, important note of that, and I can't stress this highly enough, is the fact that it's not about children's projects. We've previously had children's projects and some really good projects. This isn't the fund for that. As I say, it is funded through the Better Care Fund, and there's also on the guidance a list of other areas that aren't fundable. In terms of eligibility, you do need to be based, operate, or plan to operate in Bromley. And plan to operate is important because that does mean that actually we have had and historically supported a number of organisations who aren't necessarily anchored in the borough, but nonetheless want to deliver services. And the last round, there were a number of projects along those lines. You may have a project, for example, that has worked successfully in other areas, and you want to test and learn and see what the appetite is for Bromley. That's absolutely fine. This is around for CICs and charities. So if you're not a charity or a CIC, then again, you won't be eligible. The charities must be registered by the Charity Commission, and community interest companies must be registered with Company House. And funding is available up for a maximum of 2 years. What I would say is that's not 50,000 a year. That's 50,000 for the duration of 2 years. And again, you may want to think about the progression of your bid, the mobilisation, what that looks like over a period, because a year can be challenging to deliver. But have a think about that. Decision making. So the applications and decisions, we try to get the decisions to people as soon as possible. They're initially reviewed by panel members, and that will take place, and there are panel meetings scheduled within 2 weeks of the closure. The panel consists of myself, Helena, and I believe we're being joined by another colleague from the borough. So there will be a 3-person panel, and then the recommendations are then signed off. And then the applications are then signed off. Is it? I wonder. Is it possible to mute the other speakers? Because we've got a bit of. Thank you. That's helpful. And the senior management will sign off the recommendations within 2 weeks. That last time all the recommendations, my understanding were signed off. The next bit is about the reporting schedule and the payment schedule, and then I'll hand over to Helena to say a bit about those.
Thank you. In terms of the reporting schedule, the same as you would be paid every quarter, there will be a monitoring report which is expected every quarter around how your project's going, how does that compare in terms of the deliverables in which you said that you were going to be able to do around the funding application. So if you're hoping to see 100 people over the life course of your project, we would like to see that being increased, or where are those challenges, where are you going really well, and telling us about that as well. So that's really important to be able to say how projects are progressing and how we can help and support, or perhaps promote what you're doing to other people in other groups of communities, and use the local authority as well as other avenues to help promote that to different people. It's really important that we have that monitoring reports because at the end of the day, this is public money, and we want to be able to show how it's been used really well and how it's making a huge difference and a huge impact to people. This fund isn't always available in other local authorities, and I think it's really key that we show how amazing it is by your wonderful innovative projects that you have going on across Bromley. So I will be helping to support you with them. And at the end of the project, there'll be an end of the project report. So how did it go? What could have been better? What have you been able to learn from it? And how have you been able to source sustainable funding, or what is the next step of your project? Think about all the tools that you might have in your box, as well as those that you would have, those connections that you would have created during your project as well, to have another innovative project go forward, or for more sustainable funding to help support that initiative to grow across Bromley and maybe even further beyond. I think you're on mute, Christopher.
Again, it is very much about supporting you in those challenges. We recognise there is innovation, and that can in itself lead to challenges, but we want to hear about those, understand those, reflect on those. But at the same time, it's also about celebrating the work you're doing and the achievements and the difference you and we all make. Thank you. So just in terms of the proposal, some of this is obviously covered in the grid and in the guidance. What's clear in the format of the bid, what we want to know is what you want to do if you get money, and how much, and there is a section to say how much you want. Be clear about what you want. If you want a worker, tell us how many days, and what difference that will make. Quite often we see proposals that go into great length about needs in the borough, but it's not quite clear what you're doing and how you want to do, and how the proposal will actually impact on adults' health and well-being. So be clear at the outset about what you want. Tell us how your project offers something different to existing service. So it is about innovation, but it's also about additionality, essentially. So why is your project different? That may be that it's innovative in as much as it's new to the borough, and that's absolutely fine. And we've funded over the years a number of projects and proposals along those lines. But you do need to think about how it will align with services, what's the route, what's the pathway, and how are you going to add value to what is all there. Sustainability. Think about the exit strategy. There's lots of different ways you can think about sustainability, but do think about where you want to be in 2 years' time. Now, some of these projects will be innovative and one-offs, and again, that's absolutely fine. It's about test and learn, and it's about sharing that learning. So that's fine. the other element is co-production, and we see lots of proposals that reflect on the consultation they've done with service users, and that clearly is important, that how their service users are saying this is a service, this is a new service that could add value to what we're doing. But also think about the journey of your project. How are service users, how are beneficiaries, how are residents going to be involved moving forward? Are they in a steering group? Are they going to be involved in evaluation? And if so, what does that look like moving forward? The borough have done quite a lot of work recently on co-production, and there is a report going to the One Bromley Care Partnership next Thursday, endorsing a charter for involvement and participation, and that will be a useful tool to think about moving forward. That's an open event to the public, and we hope that the charter of involvement and engagement with residents and stakeholders will indeed be signed off at that event. Think about your social value, what benefits residents will see because of your project, and indeed how you're going to measure those. So, for example, are they local? If you're using volunteers, how many volunteers? What's their how would that equate to a financial contribution? If they're jobs, are they local jobs? Are they local jobs for local people? How are you going to recruit those? How are you going to involve people from seldom heard communities, as well as thinking about some of the environmental enhancements you may want to think about. Do you want to add to that, Helena? On the session the other day, you did mention, I think it was pro bono economics.
Yes, thank you. So looking at their projects, Pro Bono Economics, as well as London School of Economics, have created a system called a Wellbe. And I know that Pro Bono Economics are helping to support various different voluntary community groups to input this within their work. And essentially it looks at measuring the impact financially through the work that you've been doing by people's well-being. So that's hence why it's called the Wellbe. And there's a really great webpage called Measure Up. I'm happy to send any links out and to have conversations with people who are who want to take this further, or in their award would like to do this, is actually measuring the impact. So if people's well-being is increasing, or people have then gone on to get further employment, all the different measures, actually you can put a financial price within that. And being able to do that across your projects is really key for that sustainable funding, as to why should somebody give you that £100,000, 500 million pounds, whatever it might be, for the projects that you actually want, and actually show that within a financial value is really key, especially at this current time, where being able to say that it is viable within those kind of realms is really key, and to make your applications look fantastic. It's also really great for us to be able to show how brilliant the innovation fund is in terms of the money that it's able to create through avenues that we don't already see, or it's not able to see tangibly, is really important. So that might be something you want to think about, the well-being. I'll put the links in our conversation now.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I think there were a number of questions in the chat about that. Maybe we can come back to those, and we'll do a sweep at the end and make sure that we've covered off all the comments that you've raised in relation to that. So monitoring and evaluation, again, it does link back to the social value element. How are you going to retain, how are you going to monitor it, how will you know what performance indicators there are. Be realistic. It's a time limited project. We do see some high level ambition, and high level ambition is brilliant, and that's fine. But be realistic about what you can achieve within the timeframes. It's about delivering a project within the timeframe, and then potentially you've got then scope to scale that up. The next element is around organisational capacity. So have you done it before? If you have, what are your skill sets? What are your competencies? And ultimately, that feeds through into risk. So think about your risks. So are you going to get how are you going to engage with participants? How are you going to get the numbers? Are they there? How are you going to find them? Have you got waiting lists? And things change, staff leave. So think about the risks and actually what steps you are taking to mitigate those risks. And then finally, budgeting. Be clear about your costings. So if you're asking for staff, how many staff, how many hours, and how have you quantified that? And again, quite often we see bids for volunteers, volunteering bids in, and quite often organisations will drop a number in to say this is what we want for volunteers. It's not quite clear what that relates to. So if you pay volunteers expenses and remuneration, that's absolutely fine. It's good practice, but tell us and be explicit about that. So just in terms of the applications, two things really. We provided these workshops to help bidders, and we will be sharing the film and extracts from the film. It'll be slightly edited, but notwithstanding that, we will be sharing the film so you can revisit that and indeed share those with colleagues if you feel that will be helpful. There are two other bits of support. Obviously, Steve's on the call, and Steve will provide one-to-one advice. It's quite helpful, I find, if I'm writing a bid, to get a third party to have a look, to scrutinise it, think about the language we're using and is it accessible. Quite often you'll know your project back to front, but other people won't, and that ability to have scrutiny of a third party I find very helpful. But Steve is a resource that you can draw on. I should say there will be a Chinese wall, so I'm not party to that process. And the first time I will see the bids is when they land before the panel along with everybody else. The other thing is occasionally people do experience issues uploading documents. They could be budgets or statements. If that is the case, then by all means give us a call. We will help you. We don't want to put barriers in your way. We want to make this as easy as possible for you. Next slide. So what does success look like? I'm going to hand over at this point to Steve, who sat on the panel for the last round, to talk a bit about what success looks like. Steve, over to you.
Right, thanks, Christopher. As Christopher said, I did actually sit on the last panel. We did have a record number of applications in that round. We had 23, so it took the best part of 3 days, I think, to read read them all and to do them justice and to score them. But the amount of bids that came in was almost £740,000 worth of actually applications. And those applications range from quite small projects of under 6,000, and other groups asked for the full 50,000. So that was a bumpy year. You can see underneath that the panel recommended a number of applications for approval, and all of those applications there were actually approved and did receive offer letters. So you can see the kind of range of projects that were being supported, from older people day out, recovering from substance abuse, adults with autism, domestic violence, just general health and well-being, women's activities, creative industries for young adults. So there was a whole range of applications that came through there. And I think the actual funding was about £390,000 actually went out in that round. So there's a lot less money this time around. And then, as Christopher said, the applications do come through a portal that we manage the process on. And I can see at the moment that 4 have been submitted and 15 are actually in progress. So with a couple of weeks to go, it's possible we could be on for another record, a bumper crop of hopefully very, very good applications. And I know this came up last time about people saying, well, okay, if you get 3 £50,000 bids that you want to support, what about the rest? Can we come back again quite quickly afterwards if our application was very good, but there was just too many good bids this time around? So maybe the rest of our panel there might want to come back to that, because I'm sure it's a question you might want to ask. And as Christopher said, yes, the film we are recording today. We did record on Tuesday, and apart from a bit of editing at the front and the back, they will go as seen. We will be doing an evaluation as well, a very, very short evaluation, which I'll send out after this meeting. And on receipt of your feedback, then we'll send over the slides and again send you links as soon as we've got the films up onto our platform. Then we'll certainly share that. So you might have seen today, but you might fancy seeing what happened on Tuesday, last Thursday, just in case there was something slightly different that you might be interested. But with that, I will hand back.
Thanks, Steve. I mean, as Steve said, it was oversubscribed last time, but notwithstanding that, that doesn't preclude you resubmitting bids, because what that means is that there are a number of bids that are actually good bids that we weren't able to fund. And I suppose the advantage about this process is that we get to see a lot of quality bids. And the result of that is that we will work with other funders to identify alternative opportunities for you. And you will see in the coming weeks opportunities to engage with the lottery, and they're coming to Bromley to do workshops and one-to-one sessions. So there will be other opportunities with other funds to progress some of these bids if you're unsuccessful in this round. I'm going to hand you over now to Deborah, and Deborah and a colleague are going to talk about what success looks like. And we also asked Deborah to reflect on what the process feels like for an applicant. We know what it feels like from our perspective, but we thought it would be useful just to understand the perspective from a volunteering community organisation. So over to you, Deborah.
Thank you, Christopher, and thanks for this opportunity to talk about the project we've just come to the end of. Quite honestly, we applied for innovation funding. I think it was in October 2024 for a one-year project. Over that time, we have asked for an extension. As Christopher said earlier, it's about being realistic. We thought we could deliver it in a year, but we started the project in November, then you hit December and it's Christmas. And so, yeah, we did ask for a bit of an extension. So hence why, as we are speaking now, we're literally in the middle of pulling our final bits of data together and submitting our final report to Helena, which hopefully, Helena, will hit your desk in the next couple of days. So we applied for a primetime outreach and community project, and the project was designed to meet the needs of older people who are physically inactive. Just for those of you who don't know who we are, My Time Active is a local social enterprise and charity, and we run a number of leisure centres, community venues and golf courses across Bromley. And we're very conscious that Bromley's got an ageing population. And many years ago, Anne and I sat down and decided we needed to do more work within our leisure facilities for older people. And hence Prime Time was born. And it's been hugely successful. We, at that stage, I think it was 2007, we had some Sport England funding, and we set about developing Prime Time. We deliver over 90 activities in our facilities every week for older people. have many members and many people who pay as they go for their sessions. So we've already got a well-established programme. So why, you may say, did we apply for innovation funding? Well, what we found was there was an increasing demand for Anne and the team to go out to community groups, to wellbeing cafes, community organisations, to talk about the benefits of moving more, to get people to consider what that means for them, and to get them moving more in whatever venue we were going out to do those talks. And it became quite clear that we couldn't meet that demand with the capacity we had. So we applied for the innovation funding to, as it said on the slide there, deliver talks and taster exercise sessions to community groups, wellbeing cafes, and basically anyone who would have us. And when we were doing that, we weren't necessarily saying, oh, now you've got to come to My Time Active Leisure Centre. This was a more holistic approach to literally getting people moving more, because we appreciate not everybody wants to come into a leisure centre, and particularly those who haven't been into a leisure centre for a long time. They're quite intimidating places for some people. This perceived view that they're full of young people dressed in lycra who are already very fit. So we thought going out to people through this funding would help break down some of the barriers that were there, but also to say to people, you can move more, not just by going to a leisure centre, but just generally in your everyday life. We did have, as part of the bid, to set up some exercise sessions out in community venues, so away from that leisure centre setting, so that potentially people felt more comfortable going into a community venue. And you can see that from the photograph on the slide, that is actually one of the sessions we set up in a hall in Orpington. So as you can see, fairly well attended. And we did offer the exercise programs free. So anybody who registered for the project got 8 weeks of free activity, if indeed they wanted to come to an exercise class, or indeed take part in any of the other prime time activities that were taking place at leisure centres. We also, through the project, wanted to provide volunteering opportunities. We've already got a well-established team of primetime buddies who support people, welcome people into our sessions. So we thought the opportunity for us to recruit more buddies through this project and get those buddies working out in community venues was also a good thing. And also to meet that criteria of, social isolation and loneliness, which we know is a really big issue for many older people. We felt that if we provided light refreshments and time to socialise after some of the sessions, that would be a good idea. So we were very clear on what the project was focused on and what we wanted to deliver. So, on reflection, I would say if you are looking to apply, really consider what your need is and how you can meet that need. So it's that need and how specifically are you going to meet it? What activities are you actually going to do? And as you can see there, we expected our outcomes to be improving wellbeing and reduced isolation. Now they're big statements, and when we make those statements, we then got to break it down into, right, how are we going to measure that we've improved wellbeing and that we've reduced isolation? So again, when you're making big statements, you have to really consider the end bit as well. How are we going to measure our success? So I think through the application process, the questions help you to do this. You've got your need, you've got the focus of your project, the activities you're going to do, and then how are you going to measure? So if we go on to the next slide, on this slide, I've listed some of the ways in which we said we would monitor and evaluate our success. And some of them are the fairly easy ones, the outputs, the numbers of talks and taster sessions that we go out and deliver? How many community exercise sessions do we set up? How many people register for those exercise sessions, and how many volunteers we recruit? So they're fairly straightforward. The harder bits are the outcomes, and that's the real, so what? So what? You've got 200 people engaged here. What have they got out of it? So this is where Anne and I had to sit down and really focus on whatever we put in this application, we've got to be able to measure. And we felt a participant feedback form at the end of their 8 weeks with us was a good way to measure whether we'd had any impact. And through that form, we've asked people very straightforward questions. Have you benefited from the project? Yes or no? And if you have, how? And drilling down into how that person thinks they have benefited. Very simply, we also asked, have you increased your activity levels over the last 8 weeks? And then, very importantly, will you continue to be more physically active? And we also, because we'd said about social isolation, this project does, we do want to address social isolation through the project. We also asked a question about whether people felt more connected. There are 4 wellbeing questions that the Office of National Statistics ask across the country. And we also decided we would ask our participants those questions. And those questions are around how satisfied are you with life? How worthwhile is your life? How happy are you? And how anxious are you? And by asking these questions and getting a response from our participants on these questions, we're then able to compare our participants with Bromley's data from the Office of National Statistics, as well as other regional and national data sets on those 4 questions. So we thought by including that, we get a little bit of a comparison of data that's out there in the domain. Other things we considered as part of the bid was that key area of sustainability that Christopher mentioned. And for us, the way we are sustaining is the classes were free for 8 weeks for everybody who registered and took part. After 8 weeks, we introduced a fee to take part. And what we're looking at now is, can we sustain each of those community exercise sessions with the fees generated? Now, you may say, well, not everybody can afford to a physical activity session. That's absolutely right. So we're very keen to also signpost people to free activities, such as the wellbeing walks, or even independent movement at home, building a din at home, walking a bit more, etc. And then, so that was our approach to sustainability. And I'm pleased to say at the end of the project, we are now going into the first quarter of those classes continuing. And at this point in time, they are sustained. We've also recruited new instructors along the way and new volunteers, and we are sustaining those volunteers and giving those instructors work through the project and beyond the project. So there's some of the things we've considered as part of the application and then implemented, but I could talk a lot longer. I'm going to stop there. Anne, I don't know whether you've got anything to add. Anne's been really instrumental in delivering and managing the project. So I'm sure you could talk as much as I could on this.
I think I would just say in the monitoring and evaluation side that just generally asking people and getting people to write down their thoughts as well is always beneficial. So people's experience, and we've had no end of comments and people writing down how the classes, how the project has helped them, and it doesn't always sit neatly into a tick box. You know, we've had one lady, for example, who stopped using her walking sticks and who's actually given back her disabled pass because her mobility has improved so much that she feels she doesn't need it now. So that doesn't fit neatly into a box, but as sort of feedback, comments, that sort of thing, it's worth trying to capture some of those sort of comments as well.
Yeah, it's a very good point, and we did leave at the end of our feedback form a box that just said any other comments. So it is good, because you're right, not everything can be ticked in a box. No. Helena, you've got your hand up.
I do. I wanted to say, in terms of the report from like a commissioning perspective, what My Time Active have been able to do is actually provide a wealth of information that was never really asked for, which was able to give some qualitative but quantitative feedback as well, which goes outside the bounds to actually show real impact in what they're doing. Because they've been able to follow like an ONS questionnaire, you are able to compare it to other areas of the UK, so other boroughs as well as nationally as well. And there's some really great web pages like Fingertips, which is a government web page which gives you overall health data if you're looking at that, to then compare it to those other places. When it comes to loneliness, there are the ONS has the UCLA loneliness scale, if that's what you want to measure. There are 4 different questions that can be asked, and they're currently being reviewed by the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, but these are the national 4 questions. Again, this will give you an average of if your initiative is helping to reduce loneliness, really specifically with those 4 questions, if that's what you're bidding for, if your project is. So that would be really invaluable data, which is not asked everywhere. It's not a national questionnaire. It's really specifically asked usually through health areas, data that we don't have. So that really shows why the impact that you're having overview. So My Time Active's report are fantastic. There's a huge amount of pictures and data, and because they're including so much, you can actually really clearly see the impact across each monitoring report leading up to the end of the project report around how the project is progressing, both positively. Obviously, some projects don't always go to plan for outside factors, but it's really great to be able to see the whole vast array of data, qualitative and quantitative, that they've been able to capture through using a number of different methods to be able to do that, including surveys and actual well-being questionnaires. And you can use other things like the WHO 5 Wellbeing Index too. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Deborah and Anne. And thank you also to your instructors and your new volunteers as well for making the difference and giving us such an insightful project. I mean, I think one of the things about this is there's so much learning that we can take out of these projects, and I think that's the other element of, if you like, the programme. There are resources and tools that we can draw on and think, and so the ONS wellbeing questions, it would be really helpful if we could maybe share those and get those out there, because again, it's a tool, it's a resource that other people could use to demonstrate the value of your services to funders. So thank you both for your presentation today. It'd be really helpful. We've got another 10 minutes left to go through some questions, so there may be things that come out. But again, thank you also for your reflections on the questions and B on the process. So thank you both for coming. The rest of the conversation, we've got about 10 minutes left, really is for you and potential applicants. Any thoughts you may have, anything you think actually we haven't covered. It'd be really nice to have a bit of insight and site for this. I don't have access to the chat. I'm looking at the chat, so maybe Steve, is there anything we can take out of the chat? Is there anything there that stands out that you're thinking about? We should be covering this off whilst we're here.
Right. I mean, I'm just looking at the questions. Lots of yeses about the resource, Helena. So I think that probably comes further down. Are you, again, a question from Kate about, are you looking at financial value to the social value in the funding proposal?
Yes, it
A
is the
financial
answer to that.
value.
It doesn't. I mean, social value is obviously be more than just that financial value, but as you say, and as Helena has covered off, there are tools that enable us to capture and quantify the financial value. We can quantify the value, the added value. Additionalities that volunteers bring. So if you can quantify that, that's fine. I appreciate not all of these will be quantifiable, but notwithstanding that, for example, we did a project and it was how many trees were built as a consequence of that, and that was one of the asides, if you like. And so we ended up getting loads of trees planted. So again, as that does that have a financial value? I'm not sure, but it certainly has a planetary impact. So think about it in the round, if you like. If you've got financial data, that's really, really.
I mean, there are values you can attribute to volunteers per hour, and I have seen them around. So they are available. I think the National Lottery have a standard figure for volunteering. What the other
There's
financial
also
value of a volunteer.
that the HM Treasury also does, and Steve, I've sent you some links to put into the chat, which because I don't have access to it either.
Okay, then we'll do that. Yeah.
Thank you. But Measure Up also has a value, like a gold standard of how you can measure the impact of volunteering within the community financially using the HM Treasury's Green Book on it too.
Yeah.
Just getting more. The only other question was from Kate, was about what is your total funding pot this time? I think we may have covered that, but Kate, you might have missed that. I think it was around
160,000. Yeah. So we're at the end of the financial year, so the pot is not as big as what it would be at the beginning. But there will be future rounds after this financial year is finished, starting from the beginning. So as I'm sure most of us have said already, if you are unsuccessful this time and you still feel that your project would really impact the community, then please go again for the Innovation Fund.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I hope
there's everything in the chat at the moment.
Okay, Roberta.
I'm really sorry. I'm trying to find, trying to make my microphone work. And I just wanted to clarify one thing. So obviously, I understand that the maximum for the bid is 50,000, and the maximum time for the project is that 2 years, right?
Yes, it is 2 years. We have had some projects which are kind of legacy projects which have started through the Innovation Fund are kind of weaving through. It depends on what your bid is for.
That's fine. So if I'm bidding in for 2-year projects, that 50,000 is delivered quarterly over 2-year period. If it's a 1-year project, that 50,000 is delivered quarterly over a 1-year period.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just wanted to clarify.
And again, I mean, it's up to you how you structure those. And if the delivery period's more than a year, and it's up to you how you want to structure that budget. So you may want to taper, for example, that budget. You may have, I mean, most projects have significant more upfront costs than at the end. And again, you may want to think about tapering it and saying, well, actually, we're going to look for alternative and successor funding if that's the nature of the project. And again, I think the funders have always been amenable and sympathetic to that. The important thing, as Helena says, is quarterly monitoring reports. It's about having that conversation and being open. It's clearly a challenge for any funder if they said at the end of it, oh, by the way, we run out and you need to give us more money. It's have those conversations as you progress. Helena.
Yeah, it was just really quickly just to mention around that is that the the quarterly reports, and those conversations are really key in terms of getting, approval of your next payments. Essentially, what we don't want to do is pay lots of money and then go, oh, my project actually finished 3 months ago, because there's no data to actually evidence that. So within the award letters for successful applications, that first payment is not tied to certain deliverables. But going forward from that, we expect that there is to be movement on your project within certain ways for you to be up and running and set up and being able to deliver on what you've stated in the positives and negatives as well, but showing that there's evidence that you're moving towards what your project scope was, and then those payments can continue. But they're really key to be able to identify exactly what's going on, where there are challenges, how we can help, how organisations like Community Links Bromley and others can support you to deliver on what your innovative thing is, because it might be so brilliant that further funding might be needed to continue it, because it's really important on other avenues. Thank you.
Kate.
Am I right in thinking that the payments are retrospective? So there's no funding up front. You deliver the first quarter and then you're paid. Or have I got that wrong?
Because this is going to be finishing at the end of the financial year, the payment will be very quick, so that we can pay people before the 1st of April. But going forward, it will be every 3 months. So you'll invoice us and then we'll pay you.
So payment is in advance of delivering the quarter.
This
you get
first
paid
payment
before the
will be.
project starts. Okay.
Sorry, can you just repeat the last bit? I'm really sorry. There was a big echo. Thank you.
So this particular period, this is the last round that's open for this financial year. Because we only have until the 31st of March to be able to use all of our money, that means that payments would usually happen. This is going to happen very quickly to ensure that we can use all the money that we have in our pots, so that everyone can be paid within this financial year, so before the 31st of March. As of that, payments will then happen every single quarter. So essentially, you're going to get your quarterly payment very quickly. You can start your project, and then when it comes to the next 3 months after, let's say June time, I would be expecting a report of how is it going? You've had your first payment. Whereabouts are you now? What challenges have you overcome? How are you progressing? Once I've got that, we can read it and assess it and see where you are. And I go, brilliant, your project, you sound like you're on track, or you're getting to where you are, or you've overcome some challenges. Here's your next payment, as it will state in your schedule. Your schedule will also include the dates of when your reports need to be due as well.
Okay, I've got 2 final questions. I think Teresa, I think Thomas is first, and then Teresa.
Thank you. It's still on the timing of payments. So when we present our budget, we're supposed to also put the timing for when we will need payments. Is that the way you expect the presentation to be?
So if your project doesn't, like I said, the first payment this year, whether you're starting your project in July or not, it will be early, because we need to use this money through the financial year. If your project isn't going to start until July, your payments will start from then, your quarterly payments, and that will shift. They will always be quarterly.
Okay.
And again, I'm not the funder and don't distribute the fund, but what I would say is let's have those, make sure you're having those conversations. The first thing is, does your budget stack up? If it does, then that's fine. The project mobilisation will be very much driven by you. So very much at that point, be having conversations about what the profile of that income looks like for you, because it's about the delivery of the project, and have those conversations really, I would say. And Teresa.
Hi everyone, just a quick question. So I'm just literally starting up now. I've put my charity application through. It's been provisionally accepted, the paperwork, but obviously the checks go in place now. So I'm thinking to change over to a CIC so it goes a bit quicker, and then making that a long-term goal. Is that something that's okay to be able to apply for the funding, or?
What I would say is you do need to be registered. You do need to be registered
Yeah.
And if you're not, then there's merits in terms of deferring. The other thing you need to think about is your capacity and your ability to be realistic about the funding once you are registered. You're new as an organisation, so you might want to reflect on your competencies and your skills historically. So how have you got that outside of the charity itself, and how you're bringing that to your new organisation. But as Helena has also said, there will be further rounds,
Okay.
and there are other funders as well. So have those conversations. But if you're not registered at this point, you won't be able to apply at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Many thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.